I've known John since, well, we go back to the days when he was on the county board as one of my commissioners, one of my legislators, and so we've been friends for a number of years. I've watched his contributions to Oakland County and to the political arena over the years, and now he's doing yeoman service up in Lansing. I think he'll have some observations about some of the things I talked about, hopefully, on Cobo, the likelihood of a changing it in this late hour. But I've sort of poisoned the well for you, John. So, ladies and gentlemen, Senator John Pappageorge from Troy.
Getting up, speak before a group of all kinds of political experts, to include Brooks, reminds me of the story of the guy that was killed in the Johnstown's flood. He drowned. It was a terrible experience, and he's led a good life, winds up in heaven. And St. Peter welcomes him, and he says, "Thank you, St. Peter. I'm so happy that I'm here, but I was drowned in the Johnstown flood, and it was this tremendous experience, and I want to tell people about it before, I kind of lose all the details." And St. Peter said, "Well, that's good. We have a symposium every Tuesday, and we'll put you on the agenda, and you can speak about the Johnstown flood." Oh, he was so happy. And every week he'd go to St. Peter's. He'd say, "Is it my turn?" He'd say, "Peter said, we got plenty of time up here. Wait." And he just kept pestering St. Peter. So finally one day in exasperation, St. Peter said, "Okay, next Tuesday you can talk about the Johnstown flood. But I want to warn you, Noah's going to be in the audience." Let me begin by putting what's going on in Michigan in perspective. I believe in the history of the world there have only been 3 major revolutions. The first one was when we decided to farm instead of hunt, and land became very important. And through wars and all the tribulations, we wound up after hundreds of years in the system we have now and the boundaries we have now. And about 175 years ago, we learned how to harness the strength of our bodies to machines, and it was called the Industrial Revolution. And the world changed again, faster. And not too many years ago, we figured out how to harness our minds to computers, and the world is changing so fast we don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. Michigan stayed too long in the second revolution. And it was a wonderful cash cow. But as Brooks told you earlier, that's not where the future's going to be. Not to denigrate the automobile industry, but to understand there has to be more if Michigan is going to become whole and survive and diversify. And so that's one of my major focuses in Lansing. Now, the other thing I want to put in perspective is you hear about millions and billions and trillions. To understand what people are talking about, if we had $1 million in brand new $10 bills in front of us, of course we'd all jump at it, but the stack would be 2 feet high. $1 billion is taller than the Empire State Building. $1 trillion is 1,000 stacks taller than the Empire State Building. That's the kind of money these guys are throwing around. And frankly, it's irresponsible. Because stimulus is a kind word for we're going to take out this big loan, and our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay for it. And the one body at Lansing that understands that is the Republican-controlled state Senate. We are the firewall. Now, before I get any further with a lot of stuff I want to talk about, I want to recognize Dave Robertson here. Dave Robertson is running for the state Senate, and we need him. He is running in a seat that somebody named Cherry has held for 16 years. Now, yeah.
also our newest director. He's our
Yeah.
policy director, and we thank him for that. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
I wasn't going to let you stay seated, Dave. But this is a key race. It's a very important race, and races cost a lot of money, and it takes a lot of shoe leather, so I hope you're all behind Dave because we need him.
We are.
I just want to remind somebody what bankruptcy means. It means a guy's allowed to stiff his vendors. Okay? That's what bankruptcy means. That means if anything happens at the top of that pyramid, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, the way they get better is they have to stiff the people who they owe money to. And once the people in California that make all those electronic stuff that go in cars realize this, I think we'll get some support outside of Michigan. But that's what goes on when you have a bankruptcy. Now, let me talk about 3 areas. I had no intention of being a senator, but here I am. I said, okay, if I go to Lansing, there's 3 things that I want to worry about. Taxes, the budgeting system that Brooks already talked about, and our regulatory system. Taxes, the first thing we better get rid of, and the Senate has already voted to do so, is to get rid of the surcharge, the business surcharge. Those of you in here who are in business, your taxes have gone through the roof. And the reason that happened is the Senate put together a proposal that was revenue neutral. Originally, we were cutting it by $600 million, but the governor wouldn't stand for it. Our tax proposal supported small business, which is where all the jobs come from. The Democrats and the governor supported manufacturing and the big 3. Now, under the replacement for the SBT, now called the MBT, you know how much tax the big 3 pay? 0. Now, when you think of the kind of money they used to generate and you spread it over small business, that's what's killing us. And the surcharge that the governor put on at 4 o'clock in the morning on 1 October added 21.9% to that tax load. That's horrendous. The third area is our regulatory system. Some of you are familiar with the Columbia Towers. Those are those big red towers across from the Troy Marriott Hotel. That's Alan Kirillock, who is on Brooks's board. He's involved in transportation issues, if I recall. He went to South Carolina, put in a 1 million square foot building, and got all his permits and okays in a final 5-hour meeting. He said it would take 2 years to put a shovel in the ground in Michigan. I'll give you a small example. It's in Mike Bishop's district, just across from mine. It's a little restaurant called Alex's. Very nice place. He waited 8 months for his building permit. Building inspector went in there and said, as you walk in, there's a cash register on a little setup there, and then he had a clothing rack, a little cubby there. Building inspector said, take out the clothing rack. The guy said, why? He said, I want you to put a little table in there so if somebody in a wheelchair wants to sign their credit card slip, they can do it. I says, this is a restaurant. I got 40 tables here. Nobody's standing up when I hand them the bill. Guy said, take out the clothing rack. You go in there and there's a little table where you ought to have a clothing rack. Now, it took 8 months to get his permits. You can cost out what happens when 30 people who could have been working for 8 months did not, and multiply that by all the building inspections in Michigan.